everyone. Welcome to the 5-Beer Plan. I'm Brian, and this is the ongoing saga of an everyman's ale trail. In this episode, I think outside the box and get cooking with beer, pitch the yeast in the homebrew project, find out more about what makes a boozy bake with Stef Haines, and review Southern Lights from Back Porch Brewing Company. But before we get this party started, here is this episode's burning question. What is your favorite New England IPA? According to Untappd, mine is Bale from New Anthem Beer Project out of Wilmington, North Carolina. Sadly, they went out of business in 2024. This beer came from one of my favorite beer pals, John Dispenza, back in early 2021. This is one amazing beer that lives up to the hype. Super hazy orange juice colored pour. Massive tropical nose. Thick and juicy on the tongue, with just the right balance of citrus peel bitterness. At that time, it was one of my highest rated beers. If you've ever had this beer, let me know what you think of it. In this segment of Tales from the Trail, it's time to talk about cooking with beer. The interview segment this month with Stef Haines have inspired me to share my personal experience in using beer for cooking and baking. As you will hear in this episode's interview, Stef mentions she does not use beer in her bakes because it is not the star of the show. I respect that and totally get it. But for me, I love to get the essence and depth of flavor that beer imbues. When I think about my experience with beer and cooking, here are a few things that I have tried. First of all, the classic beer recipe is beer cheese. I've tried it several times over the years. You can use whatever kind of beer you like. Lighter beers, such as pale ales or IPAs, offer, of course, a lighter flavor. Darker beers will give the cheese more depth of flavor. And the type of cheese you use gives an endless number of possibilities. One key that I've learned is to shred the cheese from a block. The anti-caking powders in shredded cheese prevent it from melting and getting all gooey. And if you're really ambitious, you could make some homemade pretzels or pretzel bites. Believe me, the family will love it. Beer bread is another easy thing to make. Flour, baking powder, butter, some sweetener, and liquid are typical ingredients for a basic beer bread recipe. In this case, a can or a bottle of beer is used for the liquid. Once again, you can use any kind of beer you like. You can also add other adjuncts to the bread depending on what you'll be pairing it with. One of my absolute favorite things to bake is a chocolate Guinness cake with Bailey's buttercream frosting. As the name suggests, you use Guinness in this cake and Bailey's. It's really just a chocolate cake, where again you're substituting the liquid with the beer. You can use Guinness Extra Stout, or you can use Guinness Foreign Stout for a little extra malty kick. It just really depends on what you're feeling like. And of course the Bailey's just gives it such a nice sweet over-the-top taste. I tend to make mine in a 2-layer cake with frosting in the middle. I just find that to be just a really nice dessert. The last couple of years, I've also used beer for braising. I don't remember where I heard it from, but somebody had made mention that they use Guinness when they make their corned beef. And I thought, well, that's brilliant. So I looked around, and the only thing I could find was Guinness Foreign Extra Stout at the bottle shop when I was trying to find some Guinness. I thought, okay, this'll be fine. I'll tell you what, a bottle of Guinness and the corned beef, let that go ahead and cook all day, add some fresh garlic on top of it, carrots and potatoes. Oh my goodness, there is just something so nice and wonderfully malty about this particular recipe. My family loves it, and it's something that I do every time I make a corned beef. In fact, what I usually do is I usually will find corned beef on sale a day or two after St. Patrick's Day, stock up, and then I can have it during the year. Of course, beer brats is another thing you can do. You can braise the brats in beer, your favorite kind of IPA, your favorite kind of stout, and then put them on the grill or on the smoker. Easy peasy. Now, one thing I've never done is beer can chicken. I've heard it's really simple and really does a good job of making the chicken taste good, but I don't usually cook whole chickens, honestly. Nobody in my family really likes the dark meat, so I figure, what's the point? So, those are just a few things that I use beer in. I'd love to hear what you use beer for in your baking or cooking as well. Inspire me. In this segment of Homebrew Hijinks, where I document my homebrew adventures, I pitch the yeast. The next step in the brew day process was to cool the wort to a temperature where the yeast would be in a comfortable range. For most ale yeast, a range of 60 to 70 Fahrenheit is the ideal range. For lager yeast, which I have yet to try, a range of 45 to 55 degrees Fahrenheit is optimal. Some homebrewers employ a cooling circuit of copper which they connect to the cold water of their sink. Others, like me, simply use the cold water bath method using ice. For my purposes, this is really the easiest and most efficient method for my small batch brewing, and honestly, it really doesn't take a terribly long time. So during the last few minutes of the boil, I prepared my water bath. To be sure there would be no accidental contamination, I sanitized the sink and surrounding area of the counter space I would be using. I put the stopper in the sink and added a 7-pound bag of ice. I then added enough cold water so the sink was half full. I would add more cold water and ice as needed during the cooling process. I also sanitized the lid for my pasta pot during this time. Once the boil was complete, I covered the pot and placed it in the sink. Fortunately, I have a deep well sink which works just perfectly for this. So every few minutes, I would swirl the pot around in the sink to mix the cooling wort inside. I used my sanitized instant read thermometer to know when I was within the appropriate range. It can be a bit of a challenge. The wort near the edge is always cooler than that in the center, so I always try to take measurements at different locations. Once I was satisfied with the temperature, I dipped out 2/3 of a cup of wort with a sanitized glass measuring cup and poured it into my measuring vessel to get the original gravity reading. It came out to be 1040, right on target. I carefully poured the remainder of the wort into my sanitized glass carboy and stirred it around for a minute or so to aerate it. I also placed the wrapped pill in the container and started the brew session in the app. I had sanitized kitchen shears and a pack of Cellar Science Cali yeast in preparation for this step as well. I would only need 5 grams of yeast for the recipe, so I weighed out the correct amount and pitched it in the carboy. I sealed it up with the lid and airlock assembly, wrapped it in a towel to keep the light off of it, and then began the cleanup process. So next episode, fermentation commences. Now, it's time for Barstool Banter. In this episode, I wrap up my baking lesson with Stef Haines from Chef Stef's Boozy Bakes in Largo, Florida. She shares a bit more about the process and challenges and who does the quality control for taste in the business. You'll hear about the environmentally conscious packaging she uses, and of course we finish on the topic of beer, both for cooking and consumption. Look her small business up, and if you find yourself in the greater Tampa area, maybe you'll find yourself enjoying her boozy creations at a farmer's market or even a beer fest. I have family members that are gluten-free, so do you do any gluten-free options?
Yes. So every week I try and have at least one gluten-free vegan item, but I always just tell people it's only made with gluten-free ingredients because I can't control what everyone else
Yeah.
uses at the commissary and we have to use shared equipment. But I still like to provide that option whenever I can.
Mm-hmm.
So there's always at least one on my menu.
Okay. So how many items do you have on your menu at the moment?
At the moment, I actually have a slightly small menu right now. I only have about 9 or 10 items. I've gone all the way up to 15 items at a time. So my challenge is I try and add a new item every week. And then typically when I tap a bottle, I'm done with that recipe for a little bit.
And let's face it, alcohol is not cheap either per bottle.
No, it is not.
So So, with all these things you're trying and developing, I assume that your husband is a willing taste tester in the process.
Very much so.
I think that would be the dangerous job right there, honestly.
So I don't know how much you remember of my husband. He's a big guy.
I do remember that. Yeah.
Yes. He was skinny when I met him. I met him when I was in pastry school, and literally, I would leave pastry school, go to his work, and just give him bags of baguettes. And I gave him an entire cake once. Like, I doubled his weight in like only a few months of dating
Oh
because I
my.
was in pastry school.
That poor guy. Although, I mean, let's face it, if you have to suffer through something, I think that'd be the way to suffer.
Absolutely.
So, the other thing that I was noticing, because I think I bought the banana bread
Mhm.
and you had a fun name for it. It was like it's making me crazy or something like that. Is that what it was? Or
This shit is bananas.
bananas? That's right. And then I also had gotten like the Rice Krispie treats, which I don't recall what those were.
I had 2. There was the I Tap That and
That was it.
S'more Than a Feeling.
The maple rum is what it
Yes,
was, I think.
I
Yeah.
Tap That.
Yeah. So I did notice again, and maybe this is just because of it could have been because of the heat. I noticed that the consistency was a little bit not as Rice Krispie as I was expecting. But I
Right.
also know that, like I said, alcohol changes how things stick together and work together. So is that a byproduct of that process then? Just the
Yes.
consistency of it?
Yeah. So I don't make it in that really dense texture that you get from store bought. And it took me a lot of testing to get a Rice Krispie to a decent consistency because
Yes.
obviously rice cereal is going to soak up liquid like
It's just
nobody's
air.
business. Yeah. So yeah, if people ever ask me about the consistency, I'm open. It's not going to be that you got to chew through it and it's going to glue your mouth together type thing. It is definitely a lighter consistency.
Hmm.
And in the Florida heat, obviously, it gets a little soft.
Again, just one of those things I was just thinking about because when I was eating them the next day, I thought, oh, it was good. It just was a different consistency than what I was expecting. So,
Yes.
but then again, I don't think I've ever really had any kind of baked treats that were made with alcohol. So that was exciting. That was
Good.
exciting. And your names are fun too.
Thank you.
I think that's another thing that you have to kind of tap into your creative side to make people go, oh, this sounds great. What is this?
Yes. You should see my names for my Pride and Kink events.
So I met you at the craft beer fest. What other kind of events or locales do you sell your wares?
So we try and do as many beer or wine themed events. We sometimes do just regular local markets, but we travel all over the state of Florida for our festivals. Like our big one that we go to is up in Gainesville, and it's the Florida Bat Festival. Bats as in
Uh huh.
winged creatures. But right now, we are in a storefront that is in a place called Brooksville, Florida. So it's about 2 hours north of us. That is the only storefront that we're in right now. We are eventually going to get into more. It's just been a bit of a battle, to be honest with you, trying to get into some of them.
Sure. And then being that the store in Brooksville is 2 hours away, you have to refresh your product periodically. I mean, I don't know how many days can you leave it set at a storefront before you have to take it out?
So, with the new packaging that we've been using, our product actually lasts for 30 days now.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah,
Okay.
it used to only last a week because our packaging wasn't as airtight, but we
Hmm.
changed all of that. So, with extensive testing, we only have to change it every 30 days.
Okay. Well, that's great because, and I think I remember that it was a nice clamshell that was pretty well sealed, wasn't it?
Yes.
So out of curiosity, like, what does it cost per package, one of those nice clamshells?
So, our packaging actually costs me more than the average because all of ours are eco friendly. They're actually
Oh, okay.
plant based, they're not
Okay.
actually plastic.
Well, kudos to you for going the environmental route because that's an important thing in this day and age. It really is because we just are such a disposable society, especially here in the US. And you don't want these things flying off and going into the ocean and mucking things up, right? That's the other thing.
Exactly.
So you all already kind of alluded to this. I mentioned that I like to bake and cook as well. One of my favorite things to bake around this time of year is a Guinness chocolate cake with Bailey's Irish buttercream. I know you do alcohol only at this point. Why haven't you baked with beer, or why don't you have products that are baked with beer at this moment?
So before the company was even a thought, when I was just doing baking for fun, I did actually try baking with beer. I made my husband a stout cake
Hmm.
many, many years ago. The problem, not the problem. My thing is, I enjoy having the alcohol be the flavor of the item. So that banana bread, all the peanut butter flavor was from the whiskey. There wasn't actually peanut butter in there. You don't get that as much
Hmm.
with beer. If you do a chocolate cake, it brings out the chocolate more. So I enjoy the fun aspect of having it be the flavoring of the item. And I haven't been as successful with that with beer yet. Yet.
And I appreciate that again, that you want the alcohol to be kind of the center stage of this. And typically, beer in cooking is usually just to add a little bit of depth of flavor. Just think about beer cheese, for example. It's one of my favorite things to make too. But cheese is the the center point on that, not the beer. You get a little bit of beer flavor there, so I
Yeah.
can appreciate that. Maybe you need to find a good barrel aged beer of some sort to cook with.
Yeah. If anyone's willing to let me test theirs, I will.
There you go. So you heard it first, Florida brewers. Chef Steph is looking for your barrel aged beer to cook with. So a lot of craft businesses sell their products online. Do you have that capability as well?
I do have the capability. I have a small collaborative website that I've gone on with a friend of mine. I don't have my own website yet, primarily because I change my menu so often
Yeah.
that it's a little difficult to try and keep up with.
Hmm.
Plus, a lot of my popular items, if the alcohol gets discontinued, then I run into that issue.
I hadn't even thought about that aspect, being that you're using some, in some cases, craft to distilled product. So when that happens, do you have to pivot then and find a different alternative?
So, the s'mores Rice Krispie treat that I had at the beer fest, I had that when I first started the business, but then the whiskey that I was using got discontinued. And it was only recently that I found a new whiskey and I was able to revive that recipe. So it really all depends when I run into those roadblocks of the alcohol not being available anymore. Do I pivot to something else? Do I hold out and see if I can, make something different? It really just kind of all depends.
Okay. Do you have a favorite alcohol to bake with?
I'm a whiskey girl. When I'm not drinking beer, I'm drinking whiskey, and that one typically lends easier to certain desserts, so I'd have to say whiskey is probably my go-to, my favorite one to cook with.
All right. So what is your favorite whiskey that you like to drink?
Ooh. Well, I'm really enjoying, because we just collaborated with Von Payne. They have currant infused whiskey, and it is a very sweet whiskey, and I am all about sweet. That's probably my favorite one to sip on, but I also just like a simple maker's mark.
Okay. A currant. See, that sounds killer to me.
Yes.
I like whiskey. It's not like one of my go-to things. If somebody says, "Hey, do you want a little, bit of whiskey?" I'll be, "Yeah, sure. Give me some on the rocks." So I keep a little bit around. I've got some Talisker Sky that I keep around. That's super peaty. That, I mean, nobody else likes, but I do. It's kind of nice just to have a little, fingers worth and sip on that, in the evening.
Yes.
We already mentioned that this is a beer podcast. You've already mentioned that you have some breweries in the area that you have on your list of places to go. What are some of your favorites there in the greater Largo area that you and your husband like to visit?
So there is one in Largo called Arcane Aleworks.
Love Arcane.
Oh, their stuff is absolutely amazing. And shameless plug, it's not in my area, but it's in Orlando, where I moved from. Sideboard Brewing. They're actually friends of ours, but their brewer makes my kind of beer. And their opening weekend, I am amazed that I remember it. So, Sideboard Brewing in Orlando and Arcane here in Largo.
My wife and I think it might have been 2024. We went to Arcane for the first time, and if I remember correctly, they do a lot of sours and IPAs. But the beer was so good, so
Yeah,
good.
dangerously good.
Since you helped kick off Tampa Bay Beer Week, going to the Craft Beer Fest, were there any events that you and your husband went to during Tampa Bay Beer Week?
No, we didn't
Oh,
have time.
okay, all right. I have to say, I was amazed at just how many events there were, like every single day. 3, 4 different breweries and doing this, that, and the other thing. I mean, I hit a few, but nothing. I mean, I think you could take the whole week off and probably not remember most of it. It was so crazy. So
Yeah. Tampa goes hard.
good parties, good
Yeah.
parties. You've kind of alluded to it already because I think you're drinking one of your favorites. So, what is your favorite style of beer, Steph?
I am a pastry stout. Anything dark, sweet, that is my go-to.
What is your favorite pastry stout that you're drinking at the moment?
I don't think I actually have a favorite. I'm a very eclectic. I like several different brands. Although I will say, because I am drinking Dragon's Milk,
Oh, nice.
they typically catch my fancy. I have never been disappointed with anything from Dragon's Milk.
Yeah, they're from Holland, Michigan, which is not too far from where I live. So we get
Yeah.
that pretty easily here in our area. And I know that they're regionally distributed, which is pretty nice. So no, their
Yes.
stuff's pretty solid. In fact, I think I had one set back from a couple of years ago, and I think it was a s'more. It was so amazing. Even like 3 years later, it was still pretty amazing. So that's one of
Yeah.
the benefits of those barrel aged beers. They do last for a little bit longer, which is nice.
They do. Yes. Yeah. The
Have you
one that
ever
I have right now is barrel aged.
What kind of variant is it, or is it just a straight up?
It's their oatmeal cookie.
Oh, okay. I don't think I've
Yeah.
ever had that one. So tasty.
Oh, it is delicious.
I'm always amazed at how brewers can get the flavor that they do out of beer, and it's just for the most part, it's the malt and the grain and whatever kind of yeast they're adding. So it's just crazy. I call it magic. It's like alchemy. It's kind of like
Yeah.
what you're doing too. Just throwing a bunch
Yes.
of stuff in a pot and like making magic.
Yes.
Do you have any upcoming events that you are attending that you want to talk about?
Um, I mean, we keep a fairly busy schedule. We're basically at events every weekend. Um, Nothing standing out to me too much, although we are for the first time taking the business out of the state of Florida.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yes, we have the opportunity to go with one of our favorite organizers to North Carolina in April.
Wonderful.
So I'm excited for that.
What area?
Fletcher, Hendersonville?
Okay. I'm not
N-
familiar with that area.
No one is.
Is it near
Well,
Asheville?
what's that?
Is it near Asheville?
I don't think it's too far from Asheville,
Okay.
but we're going to one of the agriculture centers there to do the market.
Oh,
So I'm
fun.
excited for that one.
Yeah, something new and different.
Yes.
Now, do you have either social media or website? Do you have all of your events coming up published then as well?
Yeah, so I keep Facebook and Instagram updated. Every Monday, I post the schedule, and then throughout the week, I post like the flyers and everything for the event that we're doing. And then obviously post like our new item for the week, the menu, all of that. Socials has is how we've been kind of getting out
Yeah.
there, keeping people up to date, getting special custom orders and things like that.
Do you have a core selection of products that you always take to your shows?
Yes. So the banana bread is our most popular seller. The cookies that we make based off of the old fashioned cocktail we've had on the menu since we started the business. The one and only time that I ever tried to take them off the menu, people rioted. So I'm never allowed to take them back off. and I always have to have something chocolate on the menu.
That sounds pretty darn good. And I'll be honest, the banana bread I really enjoyed. That was quite tasty. They didn't last
Thank
through the
you.
day that we opened it up. So
Thank you.
as we near the end here, I have one last fun question that I ask everybody that I interview. If you were a beer, what style would you be and why?
So I would definitely be a pastry stout, high ABV, because I'm dark, I'm sweet, and with the high alcohol, you can only have me for a little bit before I'm just a little too much.
I love the answer. That's very unique. I've never heard that said before.
I like to be unique.
Fantastic. Well, Steph, I really appreciate you coming on and talking about your business. It's been fun learning more about Chef Steph's Boozy Bakes. If anyone's listening, they ever in the Florida area, the Largo area, or just happen to stumble upon the website there, check them out because they're good things. Steph, thanks again. I really appreciate it. And I hope you have a good rest of your week.
Thank you, you too.
Thanks, Steph.
Bye.
Bye.
Last call.
It's nearly time to wrap things up, but first, one more for the road. In this episode, I'm keeping it Florida and drinking Southern Lights from Back Porch Brewing Company, located in Venice, Florida. From the brewer, brewed with a combination of Nelson Sauvin, Peacherine, and Riwaka, we get notes of peach juice, juicy fruit, guava, passion fruit, and tropical citrus notes. Without further delay, so this is a 7.2% ABV New England IPA. I purchased this beer directly from the taproom during my recent Florida visit. This has become one of my favorite places to stop after a long day of shark tooth hunting at Casperson Beach. They have a wide open taproom that is light and inviting. The staff is amazing as well, and they have some really great pressed handhelds, ciabattas, and salads on their menu. I have never had a bad meal there, and the beer always hits the spot. Located just off I-75, it's super convenient whether you're coming or going from Venice. So I poured this out into a pint glass that came from Seaside Brewing Company. That's in, I think, Cannon Beach, Oregon, but I'd have to look that up. I love the cup because it has a picture of an octopus surrounding the logo. A very, very cool logo. So the beer poured a deep golden color with a pretty generous foamy white head. Part of that could be because I agitated the can slightly, because it has been in my refrigerator for a month or so, and I wanted to make sure that I was able to get a lot of the sediment that likely settled during its rest in my refrigerator. On the nose, exactly what I was hoping for. Some nice, juicy stone fruit, a little bit of citrus. Just seems like it's going to be sweet and juicy. Exactly what I was hoping for. Which I think I already said. I must be thirsty, so the first sip impression. So I get those New Zealand hops on the palate, get a little bit of white grape in there, definitely get the peach flavor in there as well. Mild amount of bitterness on the palate, not overly so. Very refreshing. Maybe just a little bit of earthy, deep, citrus in there as well. Boy, that is a really nice beer. I will say that I did have this on tap when I was at Back Porch Brewing Company back in February, and I just really could not bring home a 4-pack, one to review and some to share with some of my beer pals who know who they are. I keep telling myself that I'm not really an IPA focused beer aficionado, but you know what? There just is something so interesting about IPAs, especially with a lot of the newer hops that are, both aromatic. They have interesting tropical flavors on the palate, kind of a medium-bodied mouthfeel, which I would, again, kind of expect for the style. Just a really nice, solid a delicious NE IPA. And it came from Florida and gives me the Florida vibe, which I really could use on a day like today. I give this one a high 4 tasters out of 5 on the flight board. Cheers, Back Porch Brewing Company. I can't wait to get back there again. I'm always looking for new craft beverages to review. So if you've got one from your local favorite craft brewery, meadery, or cidery you'd like me to drink and describe, reach out and let me know. That's all for this episode of the 5 Beer Plan. With so many podcasts out there, thanks for choosing to listen to mine. Join me next time as I fire up the mass shift drive for another trip back in time, learn about agricultural research at the University of Florida, check on the fermentation in the homebrew, and review another beer. Remember to hit the subscribe button on your preferred podcast platform to be notified of new episodes. Follow me on Instagram as well, 5 Beer Plan 2022, to see what is happening on my personal ale trail. I'd love to hear from you, and there are several ways you may do so. Leave a comment for this episode on Spotify, direct message me on Instagram, or email me directly, 5beerplan@frontier.com. Be sure to support your local breweries, choose your beers wisely, and drink them responsibly. Until next time, keep walking your ale trail, and stay thirsty, my friends. Oh, by the way, big news! 5 Beer Plan is now available on YouTube as well. So maybe at some point this radio face will make its appearance in a real live video.